Dr. Randeep Guleria is an Indian pulmonologist and the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. He is credited with the establishment of India's first Center for Pulmonary Medicine and Sleep Disorders at AIIMS. He is the first Indian to get a doctorate of medicine in pulmonary and critical care medicine. He joined AIIMS in 1992 as assistant professor in Department of Medicine, and in subsequent years he has been promoted to the post of associate professor, additional professor and professor. He has done pioneering work in respiratory medicine. The Department of Pulmonary Medicine and Sleep Disorders has been created under his dynamic leadership in 2011 and has been ranked as the best department in pulmonary medicine in 2014, 15 and 16 by Nielsen survey publishing week. He was instrumental in starting DM course in the discipline of pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine at AIIMS in 2011. An eminent doctor, he has also been the personal physician to the former Prime Minister of India, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. Sir has been conferred with the prestigious Padma Shri Award in 2015 by the President of India and with Dr. B.C. Roy Award in the category Eminent Medical Person for the year 2014 by the Medical Council of India. In addition to these, he had several awards and honors to his credit. He has also been invited as an expert in several national and international forums. Dr. Guleria has played a key role in India's COVID-19 management and also co-authored the book Till We Win, India's Fight Against the COVID-19 Pandemic. The book became a national bestseller within the first week of its release. With a store of accomplishments and service to mankind, I request Dr. Guleria to deliver his address.
Thank you for your kind words. At the onset, let me really thank the Delhi Technical University for inviting me today for the Golden Pride function. It's truly an honor and thank you very much for that. I would also like to take this opportunity to really congratulate the gold medalists, the students who are getting the scholarship and the PhD students, because what they've done and what they've achieved is remarkable and something unique even if you look at previous batches. They've done this during a time which has been most challenging as far as humanity is concerned. It has been a time where you've had to innovate, where you had to have a lot of stress because of an ongoing pandemic about which we knew nothing about. And this pandemic affected all sectors of society. You name it, and the pandemic had an effect on that sector. It had a huge effect as far as the health sector was concerned. But livelihood, economy, tourism, travel, sport, education, everything was affected and suffered quite badly as far as the pandemic, that sector was concerned during the pandemic. So this was challenging times, and to do your PhD during this time is something special. And I must say that you really deserve a round of applause for having done your PhD during this time. I can understand the problems that you face because I've had 3 PhD students during this time, and they had a huge amount of problem because when we do in the medical field, when you're having PhD students, a lot of time the work is partly clinical and partly lab based. So you have students who have to take samples from patients, but if you have an OPD which is sort of shut down, patients are not willing to come, how do you get your samples, whether it's picking up a disease like tuberculosis or any other disease? You will not get your patients, so how do you complete your sample size? If the lab is shut, how do you do your test? How do you run your ELISA or the other tests that you would like to do in your samples? That was a challenging time. And even for our MD and DM students, we had to at times change the thesis topic because it was not possible to do that thesis because of the ongoing pandemic. And you have to do it in a limited period of time. So that's why I said that you deserve a big sort of congratulations for having done this during these challenging times. But at the same time, I'd like to really say that this pandemic showed us the resilience that we have, the ability to innovate, and the need for us to move out from our silos. So what do we mean by that? One is that despite the challenges, researchers, teachers continue to find ways of teaching and continue to find ways of doing research. We started online classes, webinars. Well, often you were not very sure whether the student was there or on the other end, or because his camera was closed, but you assumed that they were there. So that was also something that you had to look at how can you make it more interactive. But for us in medicine, it became a challenge because many of our teaching is bedside based, patient based. And we had to start looking at new simulations. How can we make new models which are which can simulate diseases, simulate procedures? If you had to put in a urinary catheter, if you had to put an IV line, how can you teach the undergraduate students or the postgraduate students using technology which was there? And to our surprise, a lot of technology exists, but we were never really accepting it or sort of using it, and we started using it during the pandemic. We started using teleconsultation. It's not new, teleconsultation has been there for decades, but it became a way of reaching out to patients who were not willing to come to the hospital, our diabetics, our hypertensive patients. That's where technology helped. It helped later on when we started looking at home isolation, and patients were asked to stay at home and were monitored while they were at home. So again, we were able to have teleconsultation with them. So it taught us how to innovate. And we did that. I remember in the early days of the pandemic, I used to have a daily meeting in the hospital with the entire staff. And we were worried in the early days that we will run out of PPEs and N95 masks because there was a shortage. All of them were being imported from China. And therefore we thought, can't we recycle them? And so we did a project where we started looking at N95 and PPEs which were not that soiled, which were in good condition. Could you hang them in a room and disinfect them? And since we couldn't use the virus samples, we used spores and other bacteria which were more resilient than the virus, and showed that you could kill these spores and bacteria on the surface of your PPEs, and therefore you could recycle them. And I thought that was very good because you were also saving on plastics, if I put it that way. There was a huge sort of excessive use of plastic because of the pandemic, and if we could recycle it, that could be saved. So again, when there was a challenge that we faced, we did try and find solutions. But we also had to interact with people outside our comfort zone and move out of silos, and we showed that if we did that, things could move faster and we could really achieve a lot. So I think that was another lesson that we learned. But all of this teaches us that education and research is something that should become a part of our life. We cannot really put that away from our day-to-day business of living. What you have learned today, and as far as students are concerned, will become irrelevant in the next few years. New technology will come in. So you will have to continue to learn, to innovate. And many of you will actually move into areas which are totally different from what you've learned today. I've seen students who did engineering in one area and then have now moved on to areas which are very, very different. So it's a sort of process of constant learning. At the same time, whatever we do is linked with research. Even if you want to buy a car, you will do a lot of research in terms of what is the mileage it gives, what is its strength, how does the system work, things like that, and how does it compare to others. That also is part of research. So the inquisitive nature that we have, we should nurture that. That should be part of what becomes life as we move forward. So I think it's very important for students to understand that you have to continue to be inquisitive, continue to look at life as a journey full of research and education. And if you do that, you could achieve great heights, and I'm sure that that is something that we all need to do. We are living through a revolution. And this is something that we need to accept and sort of move in that direction. In our lifetime, and this is for the older generation, we've seen changes that we never thought we could imagine. When I was in college, in medical college, I was in PGI Chandigarh, if I had to talk to my parents, I had to go to Sector 17, book a trunk call, sit for 2 hours, and then be able to talk to my parents on a weekend. Today's generation can't even think that such a thing was possible. And then we had STD and we thought this is a great advancement. Now you can really do a straight trunk call. And at that time, if someone told me that you could FaceTime with a device in your hand and you could talk to people right across the world in such a short time, I would not have believed it. The reason I mention this is that if you think of something that can happen and would happen tomorrow, much more than that is going to happen. We are living through what is known as the fourth industrial revolution, where there is going to be a huge change as far as reality is concerned, technology is concerned, and how we are going to really go about our day-to-day life is concerned. And I've seen that this is going to happen. I'm seeing that in medicine. When I passed out, CT scan had just come in. We didn't have MRI, we didn't have a PET scan. Now it's something which is very common, but a lot of this is going to move forward when we start looking at Internet of Things, wearable devices as far as medicine is concerned. You could have devices which you could wear and which could predict an event before it happens. If you have, let's say you are a heart patient, the device could really pick up a change in your heart rate, an alteration in your rhythm, and be able to say that there is a chance that you are having a heart rate. It could alert you, it could alert your doctor, it could alert the nearest hospital. This is possible today. Similarly, we have robotics in all areas which are really helping. We have artificial intelligence, and people argue that over a period of time, radiologists and pathologists and possibly dermatologists may become redundant because of AI. We are currently doing projects where we are trying to see, can you look at AI to interpret X-rays and of the chest and X-rays of bones, which would be useful for doctors in the periphery, in rural India, that they can just scan it and use artificial intelligence and use that to be able to diagnose whether this is a pneumonia, whether this is tuberculosis, and be able to and wouldn't need to consult a radiologist. Same can be done from pathology point of view. You don't have to have someone to look at the slide. The slide is put in and artificial intelligence could tell you whether this slide shows cancer cells or not and what type of cancer it is. It is something that already is being done by a dermatologist. When we started looking at teleconsultation, the dermatologists were the one which had the maximum teleconsultations. They would keep telling the patient, just send me a picture of your skin lesion and we look at it and diagnose it and tell you what to do. But suppose we combine that with a database and with artificial intelligence, you would be able to diagnose skin lesions much more accurately without having to consult a physician unless there is a discrepancy. Similarly, we have virtual reality coming in a big way. And one is looking at how we'll be able to teach people using that, how we'll be able to practice medicine. There are areas where one says that you could come out of the operation theatre and you could feel that you're in your bedroom with the virtual reality trying to show you that you're actually not in the hospital ICU, but in an environment which is more soothing because you're actually it makes you feel that you're in your bed with your TV in front of you, your cupboard and other things right next to you. So this is where the future is going to be. And that is why the students of today really need to understand that they are actually going through a period of rapid change. And I, for one, can't predict how things would be 10 or 20 years from now, because they're going to be very, very different than what we have today. But what I would like to really say is that there are a few things that one needs to consider. One is, of course, a lot depends on your own destiny, and more or less that is something that one cannot change. But you must also be able to understand what is your strength and how can you use your strength to your maximum benefit. For example, you could have a student who's good, let's say, in computational science, in coding. And I've seen students who spend the entire day in front of the computer and working on coding and doing all of that. On the other hand, you could have another student who is not good at this, but is very good with communication skills, with HR, with trying to get a team together and work for that. That is their strength. But if you reverse their roles and you expect the student who's very good at interpersonal relationship and trying to get a team together to start doing coding and the coding student to start working in that area, it's going to be a disaster. So understand what your strength is and work on your strength. And then there has to be hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. And you may at times feel that I keep working very hard but I don't achieve anything. But let me tell you that if you continue to believe in yourself and continue to work hard, you will achieve whatever goal you really want to achieve. And that is something that we need to keep in mind. People say this is the era of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But a lot of people argue that we should have STEAM, that is science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. And I think it's important that when we look at this era, we should not forget humanities, which is also very, very important. Empathy to what you're doing. Innovation that is useful, has a translational element, and is frugal, cost effective, so that it can reach out to the masses. There's no point making something which is good but so expensive that it's available to very few. So frugal innovation is also something that we need to look at. And this is very important when we talk of medicine, because the cost of healthcare has gone up dramatically. In one era, we have moved from what was classically clinical medicine to what is now investigative medicine. 20 years ago, if you went to a physician, he would examine you in detail and then start some treatment. Today, if you go to a physician, he will give you a whole list of tests to be done and ask you to come back with those reports and then start your treatment. That is how medicine has changed. It has become more precise because obviously tests give you better evidence. But I don't think this is totally the right direction, because it has added to the cost of treatment. And in countries like ours, where a lot of cost is from patient's own pocket, it is causing a lot of hardships when it comes to treatment as far as healthcare is concerned. Therefore, we need to find a balance between clinical and investigative medicine. And there are times when investigative medicine can be misleading, because if the test has not been done properly, the report will not be right, and sometimes you will, unless you use your clinical skills, you will really treat the patient in the wrong, or go in the wrong direction based on the reports that you see. That's why it's important for us to have a balance in life. And I think no matter what be the field that you are in, empathy for your fellow citizens is very, very important. As was mentioned, it's not only success that is important, it's happiness which is important. And true happiness occurs when you help your fellow men. You will feel much more gratification if you are able to do something for society, and not only just for yourself. So I think you must also look at what is your responsibility towards improving society, towards improving the people who are downtrodden, the marginalized population. How can we help them? How can we use technology which is available today so that they can have a better quality of life? If we could do that, I think you would be very happy and very satisfied with what you're doing. And that would be something that would give you more happiness than a huge amount of money that you may make, but really not feel satisfied with your life. So as you move forward, have a balanced view of your life where you're trying to do things for humanity, for your fellow citizens, but at the same time trying to develop your strength and moving forward in a direction which gives you more happiness and satisfaction. I think I would stop here, but just congratulate you all and say that my best wishes, but keep learning, keep that inquisitive flame in your brain on, don't be inquisitive, question everything, and try and find out why this is happening and move out of your silos. We've now started looking at, we have a MOU with IIT Delhi, IIT Kharagpur. We have our students going there and interacting with engineers to see what we can do. I've had students coming. We have what was initially known as the Stanford School of Biodesign. Now we have the School of International Biodesign at AIIMS, where we have students who come there and interact with us. I remember many years ago, we had an engineering student who came and he went with me on the round. And since I'm a pulmonologist, we had a patient who had fluid in the chest and it was being aspirated with a needle. And in the round, the student told me that, I think I can make a better device which is safer as far as taking fluid out is concerned. And he did that, and then he patented it and then sold it to a multinational. About 6 years ago, I had another group of students and they asked me, what should we work on? So I said, why don't you look at air pollution? There's always an issue of air pollution. So they went back, they did a lot of research, they came out and they said, we'll come out with a nasal filter. So they started off with a bigger one, then it became just a small filter which could be put on the nose. And I said, it has to be patient friendly, it has to be safe when you're putting it on the skin. So they did a lot of studies in that. They also ran it through a lab in IIT where it showed that PM 2.5 could be screened out from that. And then they had it, you could put it around your nostril and it was not visible, but when you took a breath in, it would filter out PM 2.5. So they started a startup then in Gurgaon and started selling it online. They also made an app which could tell you what is the AQI in that area and whether you need to wear your nasal filter or not. Went to schools and started selling it and used innovations in sort of trying to see how people could decrease the exposure for PM 2.5 as far as air pollution was concerned. I'm giving you this example just to tell you that we need to start talking to each other and interacting so that one can find simple solutions for problems that are there. And that will happen if scientists, if engineers, if doctors, mathematicians, people working in humanities start talking to each other. Don't hesitate to talk to others. You may be an engineer, but that doesn't mean you can't learn anything from someone in humanities or someone in medicine or someone who is is working in mathematics. All of this is going to become integrated, and we would start having research which will be of high quality if we move out of our silos and look at integrated research. So keep that in mind. So move out of your silos, work hard, continue to question whatever happens, and continue to read and stay up to date, because you are going to live through the most exciting time that many generations would ever have seen. I've seen a huge change, but I'm sure you are going to see a much faster change. So be prepared for a roller coaster ride. Thank you very much.